As a Flame Premium artist, there are distinct advantages in having professional real-time color grading tools for your visual effects workflow. You can offer a broader range of creative finishing services that can help keep jobs and clients in your facility longer. In this video, we will start with a shot designed in Flame, compositing live action and CG elements, plus simultaneous creation of matte elements for grading. So now we want to look at the interoperability between the visual effects side and the color grading side of Flame Premium. To illustrate that, we have a project that came to us from the Dreams Factory in Richmond, Virginia. Let me play this short segment from this film. So that film is called Reciprocity, and thanks for the folks at Dreams Factory for providing that material to us. It was originally shot on red, and then the bullet and the explosion was actually composited in Flame using some CG elements. We have our original practical shot from the set. You can see the explosion was done practical. We have some blood elements with some mattes. We have the table. We have a bottle that was also shot on red. I can play that back for you. Again, a practical element. So combining these practical elements with CG elements and the live action elements was all done in the Flame to produce this final comp. It's quite a nice job that they did there at the Dreams Factory. And then we zoom in on the bullet. So let's take a look at the comp for that. It was put together inside of Batch. So when we look inside Batch, we can see it's a pretty relatively large tree that we're looking at. And again, if we follow the flow, here is the original bottle shot, and it's going through the various procedures here, and then moving into an action where we've got all of the various layers composited together. If we look at the outputs, let's move down to various key points within our scene. You can see the first output. If we look at the composite, this is the shot with the bullets going through. We have also a matte that was generated in Flame to isolate the woman. We have a combine that's happening to bring the RGB channels, the mattes combining into one combined node to bring the RGB channels. The bullet is in red, the woman's matte is in blue, and the blood is in green. We've got, if we move down a bit further in the composite, we have another matte for the table, and we also have that now keyed practical element of the bottle exploding, and that's being combined with also in a combined node, the RGB channels of those mattes with a mirror element. This is actually going to help us isolate just the mirror in that bar scene. So the reason why this is important is that we want to be able to repurpose these mattes inside of grading. Rather than recreate mattes of shattered glass and CG elements, we know we have those mattes already. We want to use those in grading. So those mattes were all rendered out and then placed back here on the desktop with the original composited clip into a timeline container. So if we look at the timeline itself, you can see if I just turn off the selection, you can see that it's been combined into a container. So what looks like a single clip, it's a purple clip, remember that color. If I double click and step inside, is actually a collection of all those rendered mattes into RGB channels. So if we go to the next primary layer, there you can see there we've got all of the various mattes. So we actually have 6 mattes that we're carrying along with our final composite. We'll be able to repurpose those, basically drag and drop that shot into the color grading side of Flame Premium and then grade through those mattes. We also, at the same time, have another example here which has a stereoscopic timeline. So this is using stereoscopic 3D elements in a multi-layer timeline. We support multi-layer timelines, vertical timelines for stereoscopic 3D clips. And you can see we also have a container for that. If I double click on that and step inside, in this case what we have is a collection of mattes as well as our foreground clip for the Mustang. So we're going to be able to also drag and drop this stereoscopic element from within the visual effects side into the color grading side of Flame Premium. It's as easy as saving these two elements into a library inside of Flame. So let's go ahead and start up Flame Premium 2012, the grading side. One of the cool things about Flame Premium is that you have Flame visual effects and real-time color grading on the same system. So let's take a look at how easy it is for an artist to go from visual effects to grading. Let's go back to the browser. I have a bookmark which will quickly allow me to navigate over Wiretap directly into the Flame libraries on the visual effects side. On this side, I have that container saved that we looked at from the reciprocity film. If I just pick that up and drag and drop that to my timeline, you'll be able to see that we're not repeating or duplicating any media, we're just making pointers to view that content over the network. You can see that there's a little icon now on the thumbnail. That indicates that there is actually a container that's come across. And when we look at the editorial timeline within our grading side, you can see that we have the same color coding here, that purple color, which indicates that that is in fact a container. If we double click on that container, you can see that now I can actually view the associated mats that we brought over from the visual effects in the RGB channels. So you can see there's the mat of the woman's body. We've got the bullet and also the blood. And if we move down here, a little bit later on, we see the table, the shattering bottle, the practical element, as well as the mat for the mirror. We'll be able to use those now on our grading side. So let's step back out of the container and move up to our color grading. We can enable here, let's zoom in a little bit better so we can see our imagery better, enable our first secondary. And if we go to the secondary menu, we now have a pop-up that allows us to actually view back to those different mats. If we go to video layer 2, view the mat, you can see that what I've got here is the mat of the woman. So it's that easy to repurpose that mask that was created in visual effects. Now that we've done that, we can start to use our grading tools. Let's go to the color, or to the curves. Let's look at our saturation. If I plot the color of that of the woman's top, we can start to add in more saturation in that area. We can even exaggerate that. Let's put a lot more saturation in there. And even with that adjustment, we can play that back in real time. So real-time color grading available here within Flame Premium. Now, as we move through the shot, these elements toward the end, the CG bullet, the table that we've comped in, as well as the bottle, they're just very dark. Well, we know we have those mats, so this is what's so great. Let's go back and enable another secondary. And again, by viewing the mat, this time we're going to go to another one of our video layers inside our container, and here's the table. That's going to work quite well. Again, we can go back to our grading tools, and we're going to increase the gain there and really start to bring that table out. On the next secondary 3 in this case, we'll do the same thing for the bottle. Again, we know that's on video layer 3 within that container. And if we just look through, there's the bottle. Again, just repeat the process here, but you get the point of how easy it is to repurpose those mats and start to do our grading decisions, delay those to the very end, and really start to make our adjustments in context. Maybe that's a little too bright. And as we move through, we'll see that the bullet, it's really dark. So again, on the 4th level of our secondaries, we're going to repurpose that mat now. Again, we know that's on another one of those video layers in our container, and we'll just go in and isolate that. And again, back here on the output level, we're going to increase the gain. And let's go ahead and start to play back that shot. So again, we've increased the saturation on the shirt. We've gone in and brightened up the gain on the table as well as the bottle element and also on our CG element, which is the bullet. And again, I can play all that back in real time and really see what that's going to look like. So that's just one example of the power of being able to integrate these mats through a container back and forth between visual effects and color grading inside of Flame Premium. But that's not all. Of course, we support stereoscopic scenes as well. So let's go back and clear out everything in our timeline and move down to another shot that we're browsing over the Wiretap network back into the visual effects library inside of Flame. Let's pick up the shot that we had of our talent walking through one market in San Francisco, the Autodesk office, where we have quite an interesting museum of all the products that are made with Autodesk products, all the cool elements in our museum. And when we bring that across, you can see that now our stereoscopic 3D timeline has been recreated. If we look at that timeline, in fact, it has that structure that we were looking at before, but now we're working in stereo. So because we're working in stereo, we need to enable our sync button. That's going to allow us to work on the left and the right eye concurrently. But of course, we know we've got our multi-layer stereoscopic 3D timeline here with the layer below with our talent. And then as we pass across the scene on top, there's our Mustang. That's the shot that actually had the, inside of it, had the container. So if we double click on that, now we're inside that container, and you can see that we can also view down and see our mats. You can see that we have our left and our right eye, and our mats will also have the left and the right eye inside the container. So it's a very sort of tidy way of bringing multiple matte elements across from visual effects into grading. So what can we do with this? Let's go ahead and do what we were doing before, something a bit similar. We have ways of actually viewing. We could go in and say, let's look at this as a blend. We could also do a 2-up, so we could look at the left and the right eye side by side. Let's stick with the blending. I thought that worked pretty well. And let's go in and enable our secondary as we were doing before. Now on the secondary level, if we look at the matte, we're going to go in and say, let's use our layer there, and now we've got our mats. Now here's the mats that were generated for us in Flame. But perhaps we don't want to work on the overall grill. We could do that. Of course, I could go back to my grading tools now and start to increase the gain of the grill, again, for both the left and the right eye. But what I really want to do is just isolate the headlights. So to do that, we'll come back here to our secondary tools, and on top of the mats that we started with the mats we started with from Flame, we're going to add some more mats on top. Again, this is the beauty of kind of working concurrently back and forth between our visual effects and also our grading. Now we've made a shape to isolate just that one area, right? So from the original matte from Flame, we're isolating just the right headlight. But of course this is a moving shot. So in order to get that to track along, we'll use the shape tracker. And just by enabling the shape tracker moving forward, you can see how quickly we're able to follow the movement. And it's automatic, we don't have to think about it, it's really quick. We also want the headlight on the other side, so let's go ahead and put a shape there. You can break the handles on that, change the angle. We're on the last frame, so let's shape track backwards. You have that possibility of going forward or backward with shape tracking. So that's looking pretty good. And now we'll have an isolation of just the headlights. That's going to allow us to really be able to isolate within those mats. So we've got our mats, that's great. Let's go ahead back to our grading, and now we're increasing the gain just within that isolated area. Again, starting from the original matte that was generated inside of the visual effects side of Flame Premium. We want to add some color to the headlights, maybe add some more saturation. That's looking pretty interesting, so we've completely changed that look. As we start to play this back, let's loop that and play it back. You can see that we're getting some pretty good performance here, even though we're playing back the left and the right eye. But we can also enable acceleration by turning on the GPU button. You can see now we're playing back even faster. So GPU acceleration allows us to increase our performance when needed. And at this point, it's time to render. In order to decide where I want to render this element, I'm going to render it back into the Visual Effects Flame library. So let's go back to our setup, and under the settings, I can go back to that project. I can edit the project, and under the Renders Full Home, you can see that I can quickly decide which of the Flame libraries and the visual effects side to render back into. When I create the project, what's nice is that Flame Premium will automatically create a library called Luster, which is convenient if I want to just go ahead and render back there by default. So in this case, that's what I'm going to do. When I exit back out, go to my render settings, I'm ready to send my source grades with head and tails as a multi-layer timeline back over to the visual effects side to then continue with my effects work. At this point, I would just hit start, and we'd be able to render back and pick that up in visual effects. So now we're back in the visual effects side of Flame Premium, and we're going to go find our renders from the color grading. You can see that we've got our Luster library here. When we go into load, there's where all the renders are. And this last clip here, this actually has the entire multi-layer timeline. So let's load that to the desktop. When we enter the player, you can see in the timeline that even though we've round-tripped now our now graded material from color grading, you can see that we were actually bringing back the same structure that we saw before with our matte container. And you can see that the grading has been applied to just the headlights when we use the shape tracker. And you can also see the color coding. The color coding has been the same because we've got that purple container. And if I double click on that, we can now see that we've got our mats preserved and round-tripped back from color grading into visual effects.